Today is the day we celebrate, I think, Social Services Sunday. In true point of fact, it was a couple of weeks ago, but we were distracted by other celebrations. So now it's the turn of Social Services Sunday. It's the day we mark in the church calendar to give voice and thanks to the many people who enhance the life of our communities through the work they do serving the needs of our community. I'm not quite sure it is my place to be speaking because there are people whose direct engagement far better qualifies them than me to be speaking. However, I'm thankful and grateful for all who give of themselves, their resources, big or small, their expertise or their simple, heartfelt desire to give, to share, to make a difference in the lives of others, to rebalance the unjust scales. Our nearest neighbour, the Auckland City Mission, is placed in our neighbourhood through whom much of this contribution is made. Many of you may well know that the City Mission was first launched in 1920 by a then curate of St Matthew's, the Reverend Jasper Calder, who sounds like he was more than a small character. Reflecting in 1934 on those first beginnings, this is what Jasper wrote. When one's mind travels back to the 10th of June, 1920, when the mission was first launched, amazement is the only emotion which is possible. When we began our ministrations, we had no set program other than that we were out to help the underdog in their grim battle against life's difficulties. We started with no money, no rules, but with an excellent committee, a lot of enthusiasm and a mighty big faith. Great words, aren't they? Jasper challenged the Anglican Church in his day to respond to the neglected poor, as he described them in the community. The City Mission on our doorstep continues to challenge us and the community of Auckland to respond to the needs of the neglected poor, although the City Mission now languages it somewhat differently. It says, "Together we stand with those in desperate need. We provide immediate relief and pathways to enable long-term well-being." Today we focus on the ministry of care and the sharing of resources, often as not from those who have more to those who have less. It's good for us to do so, but I own there's something about it that troubles me. For it seems so often to be understood as a one-way exchange of resource given, rather than a mutual exchange of dignity, expressing our need of one another. For an exchange does take place. Perhaps we fail to recognize what we receive, for its value is currency foreign in the economy of our daily trading. Each of the readings we heard today reveal an economy of exchange. And each trading takes place with the available resources to achieve an outcome. In one reading, what takes place? It takes place within what you might call an economy of scarcity, and the other in an economy of abundance. We hear, and it can only be described as the saga of David. A little after the deal is done, we discover that David trades with an economy of scarcity. Although he is king with power and controlling possession of most resources, David wants more. David wants mostly what he can't have. Enough is never enough for David. So through guile, dishonesty, and abuse of loving loyalty, David murders the one who stands in the way of him getting what he wants. And today we hear Nathan holds up the mirror for David to see. Despite his actions, we hear the fire for justice still burns in David's belly, but he cannot see who he has become until it is told him. By contrast, the gospel trades with an economy of abundance. We have a context where many are gathered in a very faraway place with little or nothing to eat. Existing resources are found, however, and though scant, they are seen as enough. Thanks is giving for the blessing of what there is, and it is divided and it is distributed for each to take and to give to one another. The resources available prove to be more than enough when they are shared open-handedly. In scarcity, we hold and we hoard for ourselves out of fear of insufficiency. In abundance, we give. We take and we give to others, for we trust there is more than enough. The faith lineage in which we stand extends from David through the offspring of that marriage we heard about today. That child that was born of David's deceit and murder, of David robbing the life of the poor. Whichever way we wangle it, the successful continuity of this divine human story we tell and say we stand in depends on the inclusion of this story of scarcity and of a murderer who abused his power and enacted injustice against the poor. We quite rightly might want to rail against such divinity. But maybe this is more a human tale. What we are told is that it is in brokenness, in the suffering that we cause by deceit and wrongdoing, in the failing, falling short, stumbling of being human, that the seeds of future, of life, of hope are able to take root and grow. Does it make it any more right, or suggest that wrongdoing and suffering are right or noble? You see, for me, here's the perplexing conundrum. If you are suffering, it is absolutely not right, and it is not noble. It just hurts. But is suffering actually the way things are? And our wrestle is we want life to not be like that. Just as we want God to be only nice and sweetness and light, and for God or faith to rescue us from the challenge and the plain tedium of daily life, and to make our world better and right and okay and restored, not like it is. Have you ever wondered what life would be like if we lived in a world without suffering? Where we didn't have to strive and to struggle with the incomplete brokenness of life? How would we live? What would we do? What would impel us to the creative impulse for transformation and restoration? Those aspirations that we have and imaginings of some utopian perfection, do they arise from a myth of a once perfect Eden? Yet has life ever been this way? Is this to suggest that suffering is necessary? I don't know. I just know it seems to be the way things are. I want to be one who seeks to relieve suffering and to bear hope. Maybe by holding open a space for a person who's suffering to be, so they can occupy that space, that they can speak and find their voice and learn to enlarge and to inhabit their unique life. You see, I can't know how to respond to the need of another if I don't first listen and ask and be guided by their wisdom. Too often I presume that I am the one with knowledge and resource. I am immensely privileged, and I have a responsibility to pass it on, but not on my own terms. I think the City Mission provides such a space as it responds to immediate need and seeks to restore dignity. I don't think this is extraordinary. I think it's having the courage to be fully human. As we heard in 1920, Jasper and those with him began with nothing. More than once in its history, the mission has had to begin from nothing. And there was one time in that beginning with nothing that St. Matthew's provided space for it to begin again. In time, with the enterprise and the will of the community, the mission grew again. Because you know what? The needy don't go away. For 40 years, the mission has been housed next to us, a catch-all place with open doors. The vision for a purpose-built facility providing intentional, proactive engagement was imagined some years ago. And thank God and the generosity of those in our community, it's about to be realised. The shape and way of doing this has been formed in conversation with those who are at the front line serving and those who are served, and with those who do that in other places. We don't have to look far outside our doors to see there is an exponential growth in need in our community. The mission still desires to respond. It has learned what it does best, and that in partnering with others who are also trying to be part of a solution, that together they can be part of a greater and more effective service. For the next 2 to 3 years, the mission is relocating with a new building it's being constructed on the site. There will be some changes to the way things are done. Changes done in response to the wisdom received by those being served. On Social Services Sunday, we pay attention to the suffering and the need in our community. We pay attention to what we do in response. As people who stand in this peculiar and particular faith lineage, we gather around the figure of one crucified, and we say that in brokenness the divine is revealed. This is uncomfortable. We live in the presence of the homeless, the hungry, the sick, and the broken. In our discomfort, we want to rush to help, to cover over, to fix. And this is right, for first we must respond to hunger, to homelessness, to sickness, and to suffering. But are we also willing to sit with brokenness and listen and hurt and sit with our squirming discomfort that unsettles us? Remain present to the discomfort of pain we cannot fix. Just maybe, hope for restoration will arise from the ashes of despair when we stay with one another and wait. Discover it's our presence to one another that matters, that eases, that restores. Discover we are each needed and necessary because of who we are. We are something to live for. In sitting present to suffering, maybe our grip on the ideals of perfection be loosened. Our expectation of God only in the good, so somehow absent in a broken world, be let go. Deliver us to see the living presence of God filtering through the cracks and the fractured lines of our world's broken, perfect imperfection. Deliver us to see how much we need one another, how much we have to give, how whole we become as we let ourselves be gift one to another. How many get fed, and how many baskets of bread for living are left over.